Welcome to Frequency Matters, the RF from Microwave Update series. I'm Pat Hindle, here with my co-host Gary LaRude. In this episode, we're going to take a look at our November Government and Military Electronics issue. The cover story is really cool. It's written by JetCool, and they discuss how traditional device cooling methods, which are via heat spreading, are really hitting their limits with the advanced semiconductor technologies such as GaN. So they're proposing a new method. It's a direct die-attach microconvection cooling system, and it uses high-velocity fluid jets to cool the chip. And this can achieve orders of magnitude improvement in thermal dissipation, so it's really neat to look forward to that. They discuss it for space applications, but it certainly can be used in other high-performance areas such as radar.
Yeah, it sounds really cool.
Yeah, it is, as the photo says.
Yeah, good cover.
So what else do we have for technical features?
Well, we have a bunch of them this month, a nice full issue. A couple related to the theme, one from Rohde & Schwarz, an app note on testing DRFM jammers. We have one from Gore on selecting cable assemblies, particularly for aerospace and defense applications where you have a high EMI environment. Then Vita Products has written an interesting article on kind of the evolution of YIGs and how YIG oscillator technology is now compatible with trying to achieve the severe phase noise requirements for 5G. We have a collaboration between 3H Communication Systems and Menlo Micro on a switched filter bank that could be used for a variety of applications. The interesting thing here is they're using a MEMS switch to get the overall loss down of the filter bank. And then I think a really elegant article from Custom Mimic is about a real-time production test that they've developed to screen out outliers. And they define an outlier as a part that meets all the technical specifications in the datasheet, and yet it's a little bit different in terms of one of its performance parameters. It's not really central to the distribution. And although there's no reliability issue with it, they want to screen it out and not ship it to customers because it's not typical.
Yeah.
So it's a great article. They do a really good job of describing the algorithm and how they set it up.
So turning to the news, on the 5G front, it's been about a year since the initial commercial trials were done by Verizon and AT&T here in the US. And GSA is reporting there have been more than 50 5G commercial networks released around the world. And what pushed it over the edge was the big three announcing the turn-on of 5G in China. So China Mobile has announced they pre-registered 10 million users.
Wow. And
Korea is already reporting 1.5 million users. So 5G is definitely taking off this year, and we expect to see more pickup rapidly as we go into next year.
Yeah.
So with all the specifications kind of determined or in the process of being determined, we're starting to see commercial announcements of 6G research. So we saw Sony, NTT, and Intel announce that they're collaborating for semiconductor technology development for 6G, and they hope that will be a global collaboration. They'll bring in more companies over time. And then we also saw Rohde & Schwarz and two groups at Fraunhofer announce that they're working on terahertz systems. So they're working around the 300 gigahertz range, and we actually saw that at European Microwave Week. They had a 300 gigahertz transceiver and test system all set up. So as Gerhard Schoenthal said at Virginia Diodes, D-band is the new E-band.
Exactly.
So what did you see in the news?
Well, we're in the midst of the earnings season, so there were some interesting snippets coming out of different earnings calls. So Wolfspeed announced their revenue was impacted down about 5% from last quarter, and they project it'll go down another 5% next quarter. The big impact for them is on the RF side, Huawei. They can't ship to Huawei, although they've applied for a license application, but they haven't heard anything. And then the EV sales in China are down, and that's on the power electronics side of their business. So both of those market vectors are affecting them. It's interesting that they've been hurt by Huawei. They say Huawei's been the most aggressive in terms of designing GaN into base stations. Then switching to Qorvo, they had an interesting earnings call. Their IDP business has also been hurt by the block on Huawei. And the Wi-Fi market, they said, is down as people are waiting for Wi-Fi 6 to take off. But their mobile business is having some interesting success. Back to your point about China, they said that all the China cell phone operators are basically converting their designs as quickly as possible to 5G. And in doing that, they are integrating the full LTE into single FEMs, or mid-band, high-band type FEMs. And Qorvo has been apparently very successful in getting a lot of that market share. So not only are they getting the 4G share increase, but also the content from 5G. So in the subsequent quarters, we should expect to see quite a bit of growth there. They've also had success with Samsung. They touted that as a feature, and it sounds like the Apple shipments, as we would expect, are up, and so that tide has helped them as well. And then the last thing to mention related to Huawei, there was an interesting interview with the Secretary of Commerce this last week, where he was in Bangkok and apparently said to a Bloomberg reporter that they had something like 260 applications, license applications, to ship to Huawei, which he indicated was a surprise. They didn't expect to see that many, although it didn't really surprise me.
Not surprising to us, yeah.
Right, exactly. And it was funny because he said, although the presumption is these licenses will be denied, he said they will very shortly be releasing a number of approvals. And the reporter pressed him on, well, what do you mean by shortly? Can you quantify that? I thought his comeback was great. He said, shortly. That's less than longly. So that's the news.
Okay, well, turning to events, our EDICON online event announced its 2020 dates. So it will take place every Tuesday in October in 2020. So that's 4 days of workshops and sessions. And we hope everybody will join us for that. And so our 2019 event also announced its results, and there were more than 1,800 unique attendees, and they viewed more than 4,400 sessions already. And note that these are online, so they're available at any time to watch them over the next 6 months from the event date. And also they're free, and they're also eligible for IEEE continuing education credits. So check them out at edicononline.com.
That's great.
So how about you? You just returned from AOC, right?
Yeah, AOC, the Association of Old Crows, although they're saying AOC now instead of the longer version.
Avoid the old.
The old, right. That's the watchword. Great show. The defense budget is strong. Of course, a lot of money is going into electronic warfare. Recently, we saw announcements from both Raytheon and BAE Systems that they both have awards for dual band jammer systems, towed jammers for aircraft. The priority is on trying to defend a lot of these very high value assets. The other thing that's interesting that I heard in some of the sessions is particularly with the emphasis on trying to counter Russia and China. China in particular has adopted what they call a Silicon Valley mentality, which means they'll try to develop a product very quickly to something that you might call a minimum viable product, and then they field it. And so the development cycles are like 2 to 3 years. And of course, as you know, in the US, there's one design and it may take 5 or 10 years, and then you field something after it's been tested and validated. So they've got to be more responsive as they look at some of these new threats. So one of the ways to counter this theme is through open systems, and we've been hearing about that for a number of years from companies like Mercury Systems. And so there's a new organization, it's a joint government industry organization called SOSA, the Sensor Open Systems Architecture. And they had a meeting at Old Crows, or AOC I should say, and talking about the development there. And the idea here is by having standards all the way from the system down to subsystem or component level, that people can field new systems and iterate systems very quickly and hopefully have more viable systems that maintain an ability to counter the latest threats. The other thing I'll say about the AOC show that impressed me was they're putting a lot of emphasis on STEM. A lot of money into scholarships, and they had busloads of kids coming in, that they had special setups for them. Probably, I'd say, a lot of middle school kids, even that early. And they're trying to basically feed the pipeline of getting people interested in science and technology.
Yeah, there has been a discovery. You really need to start people early.
Exactly. So very impressive conference as usual, and I think the health of the EW industry is good. So I think that's it for a wrap. So we want to thank you for watching. We want to remind any of you who might be in a position to sponsor that we're starting to look at our 2020 calendar, and Frequency Matters has some sponsorship opportunities. This year we've also started porting the audio from Frequency Matters to our podcast, so you get a dual bang for your investment dollar. And we want to thank you for considering that, and hopefully we'll get some more sponsors in the coming year. And our sponsor for this episode is MACOM. They've been a long-time sponsor, and they are your partner from RF to Light. Until next time.